question is the House to now adjourn, and I give the call to the honourable member for Hasluck.
Thank you, Speaker. This week we've seen yet another example of what can be achieved by a responsible, disciplined and mature government. A government willing to engage constructively with a broad crossbench and, yes, with those opposite, to ensure legislation is passed in the best interests of our nation. And it cannot be overstated just how important it is that we will be able to pass the safeguard mechanism through both places this week, move on to the implementation of the policy and start seeing the beneficial effects of the economy on the economy and the environment sooner rather than later. Yet the Coalition have once again failed to support good and useful legislation, something that they are now becoming known for. The clock is ticking. Perhaps it's not too late for a change of heart in the other place. Coalition failures in regard to the safeguard mechanism, however, are not a recent phenomenon, and continuing to lament their inability to do what is right for the nation's people, environment and economy is becoming a chore. As someone who has spent most of their life living in regional towns and in the bush, as I do now in my wonderful electorate of Hasluck, I'm acutely aware of the risk of bushfires. My husband and I having our own home completely destroyed by the 2007 2J bushfires. I'm entirely cognizant of the rapid increase in the risk over the years due in part to a drying climate brought about by anthropological climate change. I ran on a platform of tangible action for the environment. The safeguard mechanism is just that. I ran on integrity and restoring trust in government and the cooperative way in which this government and the crossbench goes some way to demonstrating that politicians who are motivated by the right reasons have the ability to get on with the job of responsible governing. And I ran on the promise to build a better future with a sustainable economy and secure, meaningful jobs. The Safeguard Mechanism Bill neatly captures some of the many issues that informed the mood for change at this last election. Most importantly, the Safeguard Mechanism is good for our planet. It is the missing piece of the puzzle to successfully reach 43% emissions reductions by 2030 and net zero by 2050. The reduction in carbon emissions as a result of the Safeguard Mechanism is the equivalent of taking 2/3 of the nation's cars off the road by 2030. It's immense and it can't come soon enough. But just as the sun will rise in the morning, the naysayers will be crowing about the economy wrecking impacts of this policy when they couldn't be further from the truth. This will actually help businesses remain competitive in a decarbonising global economy. Australian heavy industry and our largest exporters know that global markets are moving to a low-carbon future, with more than 80% of Australia's trade now covered by other countries' net zero commitments. From the moment of my candidacy was announced for the seat of Hasluck, I've been lobbied, consulted, pushed, prodded, quizzed, questioned and grilled on what action Labor will be taking in relation to carbon emissions and environmental conservation. The Perth Hills Climate Interest Group are a vivacious bunch with a persistence only outmatched by their passion for the environment. The Citizens Climate Lobby are another group I've met with on multiple occasions to hear their thoughtful, considered and impassioned pleas for action. The Climate Action Network Australia, Save Perth Hills, Solutions for Climate Australia, the list goes on. I feel confident that no one will be accusing me of not listening and not taking their passion, my passion, to conserve and preserve what remains of our fragile environment to my caucus colleagues here in Canberra. And individuals like Philip from Glen Forest, who wants to see much more action to combat climate change, Nathan from Ellenbrook and Annie from Woodbridge, who recently wrote to me excited about the prospect of more affordable EVs, Shane from Gidgeganup, an engineer in oil and gas, who really wants to see companies be compelled to apply science today to reduce emissions. And just this morning I received an email of congratulations from the Climate Council to the government and the caucus on the Safeguard Mechanism deal. The Climate Council describes the deal as a good compromise. Anyone in Australia with any skin in the game at all made a submission on the consultation for the mechanism, and in a near-unanimous chorus were accepting that whatever its final form, this mechanism required teeth. Politics is the art of possible, and I thank Minister Bowen for his efforts on behalf of my constituents, on behalf of the government, on behalf of the caucus, on behalf of the country.
Time has expired.